Hello everyone. Today I'll be going over some completing the square examples. We will be completing the square for the standard form quadratic equations. We'll be finding its vertex, and then we will also be solving for x, in which makes this equation equal to 0. So let's start off. So we have the equation x squared minus 6x minus 3 equals 0. The a in this example is 1, so this will make things a lot easier. So first thing we gotta do is move the constant to the other side. So we will add 3 to both sides. We will then be left with x squared minus 6x plus blank. Usually we leave the blank there. We have plus 3. The next step is finding the value of b over 2 squared. B in this case is minus 6, so minus 6 over 2 square, so minus 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9, so we get 9. Alright. Remember, we're adding 9 to the left side of the equation, thus we also need to add 9 to the right side of the equation to keep it balanced. Next, we need to do is simplify this quadratic to b over 2, and we will then get, so b over 2, if you remember, is minus 6 over 2. This whole thing becomes, this whole x squared minus 6x plus 9 simplifies to x minus 3 squared is equal to 3 plus 9 is 12, right? So now we must subtract 12 from each side. So here we go. Subtract 12. Subtract 12. We will then get x minus 3 squared minus 12 equals to 0. It's important to change our equation to vertex forms. That looks like a times x minus h squared plus k equals 0. So then we will have a, in this case, just 1. But we will get x minus 3, which is fine. The minus 12 is a problem, so we'll just do add minus 12, which is the same thing as subtracting 12. Right? So the vertex in this case is equal to hk, which is equal to minus 3 minus 12, and that is our vertex. Now to solve for x such that this equation be 0, we'll go back to, before we move the constant back to the left side, so we'll have x minus 3 squared is equal to 12, right? We will square root both sides, square root. We are then left with x minus 3 is equal to square root of 12. Remember, square root implies plus or minus, meaning there's a positive answer and a negative answer. Then the roots are x equals 2. We add 3. We get 3 plus or minus square root of 12. Remember, you should be getting 2 answers for finding the roots of a quadratic equation. So that is our first example. All right. So now let's do another example. Another example we have is 7x squared plus 5x minus 8 is equal to 0. Notice how in this example a is equal to 7. This will be very important later on. To start off, we will do the same thing like we did before. Let me move the 7 to here. Alright. So now, first thing we need to do is move the constant to the right side. We are then left with 7x squared plus 5x plus blank is equal to positive 8. Now since a is not 1, we need to factor out a from this left side of the equation. So we get 7 times x squared plus 5 over 7x plus blank still equal to positive 8. We need to look at the coefficient for x, and we get 5 over 7, so we'll do 5 over 7 divided by 2, whatever that is, squared. So 5 over 7 divided by 2 is the same thing as saying 5 over 7 multiplied by 1/2. It's all being squared, so this becomes, so when you multiply, you just multiply across. You'll get 5 over 14. We square it. We get 25. 14 squared is 140. 40, 64. I believe it's 204. Right? Let me just double check with the calculator. Nope, I am incorrect. So 14 times 14 is actually 196. So we'll get 125 over 196. And remember, whatever add to the left side, we need to add also to the right side, but we also have to distribute the 7 into this, since technically we're not only adding 25 over 196, but actually 7 times 25 over 196. So we'll add 7 times 25 over 196. Alright. So next step is simplifying this. Remember, this just solely becomes, so this x squared plus 5 over 7x plus 25 over 196 just becomes whatever b over 2 is, which is just 5 over 14 squared, right? This is equal to 8 plus 7 times 25 over 196. 7 times 125 is, I believe, let's see, 175 over 196. We will now have to find common denominator. So we will have 8 times 196, which is 1568. Just use a calculator. Plus 175 all over 196. Okay. 1568 plus 175 is 1743 over 196. So now we subtract it. So actually we will get this. Subtract 1743 over 196. We are then left with 7x plus 5 14 squared minus 1743 over 196 is equal to 0. So now it's also important to keep your work organized. So I am going to delete some of this just so we can have some more room. Remember, we need to have it in a times x minus h squared plus k format. So we would have x minus 5 over 14 squared plus negative 1743 over 196 equals to 0. So this is our vertex format. Now to solve for x, or sorry, the vertex, which is simply h. Okay. So vertex will be negative 5 over 14, comma, negative 1743 over 196. Right. So now to solve for x, or to find the roots, right, we have to find the value of x such that it'll make this whole equation equal to 0. So what we would do is 7x plus 5 over 14. I'm just writing addition in this case just because it's simpler to calculate. But when you want it in vertex form, you should leave it just like this that I'm circling. This is the way you should write it in vertex form, so you can read off the vertex very easily. It's very accessible. But oh, sorry. So next thing I want to do is solve for the roots. So we're gonna have it where we still have the constant on the other side. 1743 over 196. Divide by 7. So we'll divide by 7. Divide by 7. We get x over plus 5 over 14 squared is equal to 1743 over 196. So this fraction, 1743 divided by 196 divided by 7, is the same thing as multiplied by 17. Right, so 196 multiplied by 7. So 196 multiplied by 7 is 1372. Or 1372 is equal to x plus 5 over 14 squared. We'll find square root. Remember, it comes with positive and negative answer. So now we're left with x plus 5 over 14 is equal to plus square root of 1743 over 1372. Be minus 5 over 14 minus 5 over 14, right? So then we are left with x is equal to minus 5 over 14 plus or minus square root of 1743 1372. So these are the roots that we will have for this quadratic. So this question was a bit messy because we had a coefficient of 7 for the x squared power, and we had some fractional numbers that we had to deal with, but this is indeed the correct answer. Let's do one more example. The next example will be x squared minus 6x plus 8 is equal to 0. As you can see, a is equal to 1 in this case, so we'll have a little bit easier. All right. So once again, we move the constant to the other side. We have x squared minus 6x plus blank is equal to minus 8. Find out what is b over 2 squared. B in this case is negative 6, so negative 6 over 2 squared is basically negative 3 squared, right? Negative 3 squared is 9, right? This thing simplifies to x minus 3 squared, but remember we're adding 9 to the left side, therefore we need to add 9 to the right side as well to balance the equation. We get x minus 3 squared equals to 1. We subtract 1, subtract 1. The equation is then left with x minus 3 squared minus 1 is equal to 0, right? So remember we want it in a times x minus h squared plus k form. So we will actually write it as such, plus negative 1. The vertex is h comma k, which is equal to negative 3, negative 1. So that's our vertex, right? But now to solve for the roots, right? Let me just erase this. Let me just move this. So to solve for the roots, we would begin from this portion. X minus 3 squared equals 1. We would square root both sides. Remember, square roots come with positive and negatives, so we would have to include that plus or minus. We would get x minus 3 equals to plus or minus square root of 1, right? In essence, that's the same thing as saying x minus 3 is equal to plus or minus 1, because square root of 1 is just 1. And now we add 3 to both sides. We get x equals to 3 plus or minus 1. In other words, x is equal to 3 plus 1. X is equal to 3 minus 1. We get 4. And then we get 2. So x is equal to 2 or 4. Those are the roots of the quadratic equation. Alright, that is all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.